Yes, exactly 7 p.m. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to our fifth session of the free PMP training, which we have started on Monday, the 3rd of February. We've launched this initiative as part of sharing knowledge with people. Really try. We would like to give the chance to people from all over the world to enjoy this full like 35-hour training which covers everything you need in order to pass the PMP exam. And this training is conducted using our efficient three in one technique, where you have the technical knowledge, like the technical project management, all the tools, the processes, the techniques, the templates, etc. Plus, explaining the mindset and the tips and tricks at the end of each chapter, and then plus the practice questions which you have inside each chapter, and at the end of each chapter, including drag and drop questions. Okay. So far we have completed the three chapters. We've completed chapter one, which was about the business environment. We've had an introduction to project management, where we saw difference between the definition for project, difference between project and operations, what's a PMO, what's OPA, what's EEF, types of organizations, program, portfolio management, product management, life cycle, etc. And also we saw the business case, the study phase before the project start. Then in the second chapter, we saw how to identify, analyze, and engage stakeholders. In chapter three, we saw the project team. We saw or we went through how to prepare the work environment for the team, how to acquire the team, what kind of leadership skills, how to have a collaborative team, how to motivate the team, and then how to manage communications and resolve issues or conflicts among team members. Then we started the fourth chapter, which is about the adaptive project management. We've covered section one, which was the development approaches, where we saw the delivery cadences and the different phase types, the rolling wave planning, and etc. And then we saw on the second section the different agile approaches, and we focused mainly on Kanban and Lean, and also we saw the iterative approach, the incremental approach, the agile approach, etc. So today we're starting the third section of this chapter number 4, and I think this is the longest section we have in the entire training. And as we told you, we probably will cover it in one and a half session. So we will make sure that today we give you everything you need to know about Scrum fundamentals, and we'll try our best to finish the maximum today. And if we will not be successful, then we will finish the rest in the next session. Okay. So let's start by first of all having a whole overview on Scrum. So what's the Scrum? Okay, what's the Scrum framework? So actually, Scrum is not an acronym. So some people or many people think that Scrum stands for something. No, actually, Scrum comes from the rugby sport, as we saw in the last session, and it comes from the term scrumming, okay, which is that gesture where the what the team in the rugby do, when they hold each other's shoulders and backs, and they agree on a plan, in order to score a goal, okay, to implement in order to score a goal and reach their target. So from there, the two Japanese philosophers, they got inspired, and then two Americans picked that and took it into the world of software development. So yes, the Scrum framework comes from the world of software development, but it is not restricted just to software development projects. Actually, now Scrum is used in all types of projects, or in most types of projects. That's why it's so popular. The Scrum framework, or the Scrum methodology, is so popular, is so famous, and some of the most valued certifications in the world are the Scrum Master certification and the Product Owner certification. And I can even give you a secret that probably in 2022 and maybe in 2021, the Scrum Master certification at some point was even more valuable than the PMP certification. Okay, for some time. Okay, for some time, and then many other certifications from the Scrum framework have become really famous. Like the product owner now is so much in demand. To have a product owner certification, a Scrum Master certification, and even an agile master certification. So now, what's Scrum about? What, like, we have talked about the Scrum framework, what made it famous. Now Scrum actually is a disciplined framework, okay, where we have three main roles. We have the product owner, we have the development team, and we have the role of the famous Scrum Master, okay? Which I think, a lot of the questions, the PMP exam are about this role in particular. And we will explain the difference later on between the Scrum Master role and the project manager role. And I can tell you some stories if you want to learn more about it. Now, there is this person called product owner. This person collects requirements, collects input from the stakeholders, from the business owners, from users, from the customer, etc., and puts these requirements in a document. This document is called product backlog, or we can even call it project backlog in the PMP, because I told you guys, I will try to share with you the, let's say, the Scrum framework as like a standard, the standard Scrum framework. But in the PMP exam, there are some tweaks. Okay, there are some tweaks where let's say we adapted Scrum framework to become like a project management approach. Like, for example, in the strict standard Scrum framework, we use only the term product backlog. But in the PMP, we can use product backlog, but also we can use project backlog. And the Scrum framework uses strictly Scrum Master. In the PMP, sometimes when we talk about the project manager in an agile project, actually we mean by that the Scrum Master. Okay, I will explain all of that through the different questions we will have in this section and at the end of the chapter as well. So we said that this product owner collects the requirements of the different users and stakeholders and puts them in the product backlog in order of priority. Now, this order of priority is called value-based priority. Okay, this is a value-based prioritization. So the items that have the highest value for the customer, they're put first. Okay, so the items here are not prioritized based on complexity or on size, etc. No, based on value. Then, right after creating the product backlog, whether fully or partially, now we will see that, then the sprints start. And in this section, we will learn more about the sprints. What does a sprint mean? Where does it come from? How is the sprint conducted, etc. Now, in the sprint, as we saw in the last session, the first day is called a planning day. Okay, it can be the full day or part of that day, depending on the length of the sprint. We will talk about that also in this section. Now, in that planning meeting called sprint planning meeting, the product owner and the team meet together, and the product owner starts sharing the requirements with the team in order of priority, and the team will analyze each requirement, define the tasks, estimate the requirement, and then put that requirement, which later on we will learn that is called user story, maybe. Okay, if it's written in a user story form, the team puts it in a document together with its related tasks, and this document is called sprint backlog. Now, this sprint backlog is a document which contains or will contain the work which the team will commit to and will carry out in this sprint. Now, once the team reaches their full capacity and they cannot take any more work, then the planning meeting ends and the team will start running. They will start sprinting, which means they will start executing the work, and every day they meet for 15 minutes so they can update each other. Okay, and we will see now what happens during that daily meeting. Now, while the team is executing the work, developing the different product increments, okay, the deliverables generally, again, remember guys, I have to use a PMP language. If this was a strict like Scrum Master course or a Scrum Product Owner course or a Scrum framework course, I wouldn't be using the term deliverables. I would be using product increments, but we are in a PMP course. So I need to use different terms, okay? Because in the PMP exam, I want you to be ready, to answer any question which got, like, with any terms it will have, okay? All right. So here, the while the team is sprinting, they're executing the work, they're developing the deliverables, the product increment, and having their daily meetings. The Scrum Master here, of course, is a facilitator, is a person who's applying the servant leadership mindset. We talked about this, in chapter 3. The Scrum Master is applying servant leadership style, okay? And is facilitating the team's work, is providing them with what they need, is removing obstacles, impediments, and the product owner from their side, they're preparing, they're refining, or they're preparing the work which they will ask the team to execute in the following sprint. Okay, at the end of the sprint there will be two different meetings. One meeting is called a review meeting, okay, where the team will demonstrate their work which they have finished. They will make a demonstration to the product owner, to the business owners, to the stakeholders, to the customer, and the product owner and the stakeholders. They will check if the work has really completed, as expected or not. Okay, and then they will discuss what if what was done correctly, what was not done correctly, etc. And right after that, the team they will have a retrospective meeting. In that retrospective meeting, they will try to learn from their mistakes. They will try to see how they can improve their work for the next sprint, and the Scrum Master will try to re-energize them, etc. Okay, but Scrum framework was built to make sure that at the end of each sprint there is completed work to be delivered. Now, of course, here if we're talking mainly about the incremental approach, we talked about this in the last session. Okay, or at least there is some progress on the product, and the team will seek to have some feedback, in order to move on with improvements, for the next iteration or the next sprint. So this is in a whole what the Scrum framework is about. Okay, so and now let's try to go a little deeper in the Scrum framework. Okay, all right. So now, Scrum was based on 6 main principles. The first principle is to encourage experimentation, to use the empirical process control, which is, taking decisions based on observations and experimentation. So if the team doesn't know what the whole solution will look like, or the customer didn't provide all the requirements, it's okay. The team should have the courage to try things, to experiment, so they can try to find the proper solution. Okay, and the second principle is the self-organization. Now, in Scrum there is no boss, there is no team leader. In Scrum, the development team, we talked about this in the last session, the development team is self-organized, self-managed. They manage themselves. They get organized by themselves because they know their roles. They are cross-functional, so they know their roles. They know what each one is supposed to do, and they have a facilitator. They have a servant leader who's helping them to self-organize and who's providing them with the environment they need in order to carry out all the tasks, and who's removing any blocks or any impediments which might face them. Okay. But being self-organized does not mean that the team is acting in solos. Okay, you probably remember the Tuckman ladder we saw in the last session. No one is acting in solo mode. Actually, the team is very collaborative, and here the servant leader needs to ensure that the team is actually really collaborative. Okay, the fourth principle is to make sure that all the items in the product backlog are prioritized by the product owner based on value, so value-based prioritization. And in Scrum, and by the way, this is probably one of the secrets, one of the reasons maybe why Scrum became so famous, like in 2014, 2015. I remember, I was working in that time, and having people, I have connections in different companies, different countries, and everyone was talking about Scrum at that time, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. Okay. And one of the reasons is because Scrum is timely boxed. Like all the events, all this are the meetings, let's call them this way, or events in Scrum, they're timely boxed. Okay, so they're fixed, they have a fixed maximum duration. And that made it so clear, and it encouraged people to use it, at least myself, that was one of the reasons. And of course, the sixth principle in Scrum is, of course, to have an iterative development cycle, iterative development process, which really helps, if we would like, to improve the work, the product, if we would like to reach better results, etc. Okay. Now, let me tell you, if you later, not now, please don't do it now. If later on you head over to our website, you go to Google, you write Ben Hamouda Consulting. You write Ben Hamouda Consulting, you get our website, and you go to free certification. You will see that we have, or we offer, the Scrum Fundamentals free certification. Okay. Now, if you apply for the Scrum Fundamentals free certification, actually, it will, take you to our platform, platform of our partnering organization, which is the Scrum Study Organization, one of the top three Scrum organizations in the world. Okay, and there you can benefit from a free Scrum Fundamentals course. Please don't do it now. Don't leave this the screen, and I will explain to you maybe later. And also, we have a present for you guys. Actually, we have a surprise. I would call it a surprise. We have a surprise for you. We will see it, later, in one of the slides. And I hope this surprise will make you really happy. Okay. But if you get access to the Scrum Fundamentals, or to the Scrum Master, of course, or the product owner, the Scrum product owner, actually, you can download, and we have even shared it with you in the public drive. You can download the Scrum Body of Knowledge, the S book, which is a book released by the Scrum Study, similar to the PMBOK. Okay, and it explains to you Scrum in the form of the process groups, like we have the PMBOK 6, and we will have in the PMBOK 8. So actually, when that S book was released more than a decade ago, and then it was updated a few times, now we have version 4. Some people thought, what's this? Like, are they, explaining Scrum like, they're explaining project management in PMP, in the PMBOK? Actually, since 2021, when PMI integrated Scrum heavily in the PMP exam, now it's become, very needy, to understand Scrum in the form of the process groups. So actually, we copied this table from the SBOK, from the Scrum Body of Knowledge, and we wanted to share it with you here. So it probably will give you a help here, or a hint how to understand Scrum in the PMBOK form. Okay, so let's imagine Scrum, as a project approach, where we have an initiation phase. In the initiation phase, the project. The product owner, actually, or the project manager in the PMP, will create the project vision. Then the Scrum Master is identified. Also, the business stakeholders are identified. Okay. Then the Scrum Master will work on acquiring the team by, after they get to know what kind of profiles are needed, from the product owner and maybe a technical person. Then the product owner will develop the requirements. We call them epics here. We will see what's an epic. Then puts all of that in the product backlog, and then also plans the release by the product owner. Then the sprints start. Now we can have many sprints, and then we can have a release after X number of sprints. Always the first day of the sprint, is planning day, where the user stories or the requirements are estimated and committed to by the team. Tasks are identified and put in the sprint backlog, And then, the team starts implementing by creating deliverables, conducting their daily meeting. And in the meanwhile, the product owner refines the product backlog. And then the last day of the sprint, there is a review meeting where there is a demonstration validation of the sprint and a retrospective meeting, to retrospect the sprint. And these, like these chapters, actually, what happens here, the plan and estimate and the implement and the review and retrospect, this repeats, for a number of sprints until we have a release where the deliverables are shipped, and then the release is, there is a release retrospective meeting, or maybe an entire project retrospective meeting. Now, of course, I wanted to share with you this table just to help you understand the different processes which are carried out, in the Scrum framework, who does what, and you have all the details in the Scrum body of knowledge, which we have already shared with you in the public drive, where you have all the PMI books, and we will explain to you how you can even get access to that in case you haven't done so in the Scrum study platform. And we are an authorized training partner. We are ATP of Scrum study, just to let you know. Okay. Anyway, all what we have described to you, that table, we will see it in details, okay? In details as it fits the PMP exam. Now, Scrum is based on 5 values, okay? The first value is courage. Here, the team members, they need to have the courage in order to do, their job properly and even try to solve tough problems, okay? They should not worry. They should not back off, okay? Because Scrum is really based on, experimentation, exploration, and going forward. Also, the team should be able to focus. They should have a proper environment where they can focus on the sprint goals. And here, the servant leader is in big help. But also, the development team, they need to be committed. Okay, so whenever the sprint goals are fixed, are set, the team needs to commit to these goals, and work together on achieving these goals. And at the same time, there should be a lot of respect. Scrum is based also on respect, okay? Respect, the team members respect each other, they respect the business people, etc. And there should be openness, so the Scrum team, the stakeholders, they should agree, to be open about the work, to be and the challenges while performing the work, okay? There should be a lot of openness, sharing information with each other without hiding anything. And, there are 3 pillars in Scrum. We call them the TIA. Okay, transparency. Scrum, really appreciates a lot of transparency with information. Like information is shared transparently, among the team members, with the stakeholders, not withholding or hiding information at all. Okay, there should be inspection, like inspecting the work in different ways. So we will see different ways how to inspect the work, whether daily, whether once in a sprint, and there should be adaptation, like to adapt with any changes that come along the way. These changes could come from the market, could come from the competitors, could come from the users, stakeholders, etc. All right. Uh, and the Scrum framework, it was built to show how whatever value to be delivered to the customer from one sprint to the other, it's actually decreasing, because in Scrum, at the end of each sprint, we're supposed to deliver value, or piece of the value, an increment of the value. So we can see, for example, let's suppose here we have a customer who has requested from us to build a machine for them, and this machine would have 18 features. Now once we have completed the first sprint, we see that we have completed 4 features. So here we have remaining a machine with 14 features, and then the second sprint we finish 3 features, so we have 11 features remaining, and the third sprint we finish 7 features, so we have 4 features remaining, etc. So we can see that the value to be delivered to the requesters is decreasing after each sprint, because actually we're creating and delivering value. And so once we complete all those features, then we can have a release. Or actually we have agreed with the customer on a different way how to release the work. Either way, this is how, the main concept of Scrum. Okay, let's have a question. A project team is transitioning to Scrum. The Scrum Master emphasizes the importance of the 5 Scrum values: commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect during a retrospective a team member expresses concerns about voicing opinions due to fear of criticism. Now, which Scrum value is most at risk in this situation? Okay. Now, um, now the key word here is voicing opinions. Sharing opinions. To tell their opinions without any fear. So actually, this is not about focus. This is not about commitment. This is absolutely about openness. We need to be open. Okay. Now, maybe some of you would say, you know what? Why not? Why is this not about courage? Courage is about, performing the work without, fearing, to be stopped from doing what is right. Okay. What is right? That's courage. Openness is about sharing opinions, saying what we need to say without any fear. Okay. All right. Now, now we will start one of the most interesting parts of Scrum, which is learning about the Scrum key roles. Okay? Um, and let me tell you something. The roles in Scrum here, they are part both of the people domain, okay, and also the process domain. Both. It can fit in both, okay? Now, in Scrum, we have three key roles, three main roles. Those are the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the Scrum team. Now, the product owner, also called or also known as the voice of the customer. Okay. Now, this is mainly a business role. This is someone who interacts a lot with the customer, with the users, with the stakeholders, tries to understand their needs, tries to capture their needs, collects their requirements, puts them in the prioritized product backlog. Okay. In order of priority, okay, based on value. And the product owner here tries to be like the linking point between the team on one side and the customer on the other side. So the product owner tries to understand what the customer wants and take that requirement and share it with the team so they can build what the customer would like to receive. Okay, so this is in nutshell what the product owner is about. Okay, now we will come back to this. We will come back to this because we really need to understand how PMI understands the product owner or defines the product owner role and how you should understand it during the PMP exam. Okay, the second fundamental role is the Scrum Master role. Now, the Scrum Master role has got different names. Like same with the product owner who's called the voice of the customer. The Scrum Master also has got different names, and I would like you to write them down. Now, the Scrum Master can be called the servant leader. So the Scrum Master is a leader, but serving the team. The Scrum Master is not a team leader, is not the one who tells the team what to do. No one tells the Scrum team what to do. No one tells the project team what to do. The Scrum Master is a servant leader. By serving others, you become a leader, okay? He's also called a facilitator, a moderator, a coach. Okay, but in the PMP exam, most of the time, the role of the Scrum Master is covered by the term project manager. But this is in particular in the PMP exam. So there is a lot of resemblance between the Scrum Master role and the project manager role in the PMP exam only. Okay, and we have a very interesting question later, in the next few slides, which will really help you understand, the difference between the Scrum Master and the project manager role and how PMI treats each one of them. When are they the same? When do they mean the same? And when not? We will see that in a few questions. So here, the Scrum Master, and I try to refer to this role as the servant leader, going forward, because I know it's a common term. It's the term which links project manager with Scrum Master. Okay, so sometimes I would call this role servant leader, and sometimes I would call this role facilitator. Okay, so the servant leader here ensures or must ensure that the team has got a proper work environment And the servant leader will resolve any impediments which the team might face. Okay, and you probably remember the definition of the servant leadership which we saw in the last chapter. Okay, and then the third fundamental role is this development team. We call them the scrum team, we can call them the development team, we can call them the project team. These are specialists, but who are cross-functional. So they have an idea. Each one of them has got an idea about what the others do. Okay, and their main role is um, to create the deliverables of the project. Okay, so they are self-organized and self-managed, and they work on creating the deliverables which the customer represented by the product owner has requested, or both have requested, and they work according to their velocity, to their capacity. We will talk about that. And they try to pay attention to the acceptance criteria, or maybe to the done criteria. Okay, we'll talk about that, the DoD, etc. Now, you might have noticed that actually the customer here is on the same page with the Scrum key roles. Is the customer a key role? No. But if we would like to apply the third value in the Agile Manifesto, which is customer collaboration over contract negotiation, then it's absolutely understandable that the customer is so close, to the team, because on one hand, the customer collaborates closely with the product owner, okay, and also the customer and the team might have some sort of contact and interaction, okay, since the team is delivering business value to the customer, and the customer sometimes might need to explain things or provide feedback, etc. We will see that in more details, okay. Now, if we look closer on the role of the product owner, what are the product owner's key roles and skills? And by the way, guys, here I try to hit two birds by one stone, because I know many of you, many people, okay, who are interested, in the PMP, in Scrum, in Agile. Many times the people ask me, according to my CV, according to my skills, am I fit for a product owner role? Can I, get the certification and become a product owner? So probably I can change the industry, or maybe I can, change the project, or maybe, I take a further step in my career. Some other people, they ask me, oh, can I become Scrum Master? I know that's in demand. So am I a fit for a Scrum Master role? So, you will get all your answers in this session, okay? All right. So the product owner's role, first of all, the product owner is actually a visionary leader, okay? Still is practicing part of the leadership. And the product owner mainly manages the stakeholders and the communication between the stakeholders, in particular in the PMP mindset, or in PMI's mindset, for the PMP exam. The product owner must, know what are the requirements of the stakeholders, of the customer, and also tries to plan, how many releases will there be in the project, and when, and what is the context, or what is, the scope of each release. Okay, therefore, the product owner manages the product backlog, and also the product owner understands or knows the acceptance criteria, which is set by the customer, in case we're talking about a B2C project, or they can even set the acceptance criteria themselves if we're talking about a B2B project. Okay, now the main skills which the product owner needs to have is definitely communication skills, because the product owner will communicate a lot with the stakeholders, with the customer, to be a problem solver. Sometimes the product owner will need to intervene in certain situations, mainly in conflicts with the customer or stakeholders. Should be able to focus mainly on preparing the work for the team for the next sprint. Okay, a constant learner should be somebody who is a decision maker as well, because they sometimes need to take firm decisions about what goes into the sprint and what not. Okay, from the business perspective, and should be somebody who's capable of evaluating the deliverables or the results of that the team is making or is delivering. Okay, so this is the role of the product owner. All right, let's have a question or two. a project is being developed using the Scrum framework, the product owner notices that a new market regulation will impact the product backlog items. What should the product owner do next? Immediately inform the development team to start working on compliance related features, work with stakeholders to refine the backlog based on the new regulation, escalate the issue to the Scrum Master to determine how to proceed, or update the risk register and let the team continue their current sprint without changes. Now, here we have a new market regulation, which will definitely impact the product backlog. Now, what to do next for the product owner? Now, escalating to the Scrum Master? Absolutely not, because the Scrum Master is a facilitator, is a servant leader. Okay, the Scrum Master, is not the person who assesses, the impact of this new regulation. Okay, updating the risk register and let the team continue their work. That's very negative. Okay, actually, what the PO needs to do is definitely to work with the stakeholders, mainly, those ones interested in the product or, who's aware of the market, and refine, make any changes necessary to the product backlog, maybe change the priorities, maybe add new requirements, maybe adapt to this regulation. Okay, but that's what needs to be done. Immediately informing the development team to start working on compliance related features without analysis, again, is the same PMI's mindset, which we need to apply and implement on all the project aspects. Okay, so definitely we need to analyze. Here in this context, the product owner needs to work with the stakeholders, analyze and refine the product backlog. Okay, that's what the product owner needs to do. Now, let's talk about the Scrum Master role. And this is probably, I think 85%, 85% or even more of the questions about Scrum in the PMP exam are related to the Scrum Master role directly or indirectly, whether it's covering directly the role of the Scrum Master or the team with the help of the Scrum Master. Okay, so what are the Scrum Master's main roles and skills? Now, the Scrum Master, which is called the servant leader, the facilitator, the mentor, the coach, is definitely the person who makes sure that the Scrum meetings, the Scrum ceremonies, the Scrum events, they take place, they're scheduled and conducted according to the Scrum framework. Okay, the Scrum Master is the person who maintains the Scrum board, we will see it later, and the burn down chart. The Scrum Master supports the team, in executing their work. The Scrum Master does not execute any technical work. No. The Scrum Master supports the team, motivates the team in order to, help them, perform their work in a good way. And also, the Scrum Master actually must be proficient in PMI's mindset. The Scrum Master must be proficient in agile transformation, agile approaches, and the agile mindset, and knows the Scrum framework very well. So whenever there is a need for the company to transition, from waterfall practices to agile practices, is actually the Scrum Master / coach / project manager who should be in charge, not somebody external. So here the main skills the Scrum Master should have, these are communication and listening skills. We talked about servant leadership, so the Scrum Master applies those communication techniques which we saw in the last chapter, and the conflict resolution techniques as well, because the Scrum Master works on resolving conflicts, listens to the team what they need, tries to respond to their needs. Okay, the Scrum Master must have planning and organizational skills. Now here, when we say this, we also refer to the role of the project manager in agile environment, because I told you in the PMP exam, when you read the question about the agile adaptive project management, where sometimes PMI uses the term Scrum Master, sometimes project manager, and when it says project manager, it's referring mostly to the same characteristics of the Scrum Master. Okay, so the Scrum Master also should be skilled in providing training, for agile or in agile. Okay, should be able to coach and mentor the different team members to support them until they succeed, and is a facilitator with a servant leadership mindset. Okay, so this is the role of the Scrum Master. You probably, you could see the difference between the different skill set required for the product owner, which are mainly business skills, planning skills, communication skills, results-oriented skills, and the Scrum Master, who is a facilitator, a coach, a mentor, a trainer, communicator, problem resolver, etc. Okay. These are the main characteristics of the servant leader. Okay, so here you have the main characteristics of the servant leader. So servant leader must have empathy, must have listening skills, must be able to heal the pains of the team members in case they're suffering, from some poor performance. Support them until they improve their performance. The Scrum Master should be able, or the servant leader should be able to build the community, make sure the team members are, like in a community, they hold the backs of each other, they support each other. Should be somebody who's got, who's capable of, persuading, the team members, to reach their goals. Somebody who can, pick the best, or knows what was the best approach, best agile approach, to implement for this project. Somebody who can foresee, what's coming, so they can predict the risks, before they. I'm talking about the negative risks before they happen, they become issues. The servant leader is committed to the growth of the people, support them, until they succeed. Has got the mindset of stewardship, okay, facilitating things, making sure that things are in order, and somebody who's aware, of what's happening in the team. So should not be unaware, like, not aware of conflicts, or not aware of issues, or not aware of performance problems. No, no, no. Should be somebody who's aware, and we will learn different tools, which the Scrum Master, the servant leader can use, to perform well their role. Okay. Let's have a few questions about the role of the servant leader, Scrum Master, Project Manager. Now, an agile coach was invited to assist an organization in its transition to the Scrum framework. After examining the current situation, the agile coach finds out that the cross functional team lacks a single point of contact, SPOC, to refer to in case they have any questions about the product. Which of the following roles is missing in this situation? Scrum Master, Sponsor, Product Owner, or Project Manager? Now, in this question, here the team needs to have somebody as a single point of contact to refer to in case they have a question about the product, related to the product. Now, since the role of the product owner is mentioned, so the right answer is the product owner. But if the product owner's role was not mentioned here, let's say instead of the product owner, there was written executive management. And instead of the Scrum Master, there was written technical lead. So definitely it will be the project manager. But since the product owner's role is mentioned and is called product owner, they own the product. So they know what the product should look like or should be at the end. Okay. So it's absolutely the product owner. A project manager attended a leadership training workshop. The trainer listed the characteristics of servant leaders, then mentioned some examples of a servant leader's behavioral traits, such as select to answers, helping a team member write a professional email to a stakeholder in order to get key information, rewarding high performing employees in order to motivate them, checking up on a team member to find out why they've suddenly become an introvert, inspiring their team with success stories. Now, you could see that here, is a project manager role with a servant leader mindset. Okay, so which two things the servant leader would do? Helping a team member write a professional email to a stakeholder to get information? Absolutely yes. Rewarding the high performing employees? No. No, that's not done. Yes, we talked about rewarding, but as we said, really try, we prefer more of a team reward rather than a single person reward. Okay, and if you would like to motivate a single person, we can like reward them in different way. Chicken inspiring their team with success stories, that's what a charismatic leader does, not a servant leader. So the right two answers are helping a team member write a professional email to a stakeholder. and I insist, writing an email to a stakeholder, not to a team member, not to a colleague. Because in Agile, team members don't write emails to each other, because in Agile, we prefer face-to-face communication. And checking up on a team member to find out why they've suddenly become an introvert. That's part of the servant leadership. Okay, to check, on your colleague, on your team member, why they have changed their behavior, what's going on, what's the root cause. That's what you do as a servant leader. Another question. This one is good. This question is pretty good. A project manager works for an organization that is used to the predictive approach. The organization's decision makers attended a conference about Agile, and they decided to adopt this approach in their upcoming projects. The project manager got worried about losing their job because, as far as they know, an Agile team is composed of team members, a Scrum Master, and a product owner. Thus, the organization will not need a project manager anymore. Is the project manager's concern justified? Now, before I read the answers, let me read the text again for you. Okay, or let me explain it to you. Now, an organization has always used predictive waterfall, and now the decision makers decide to move to Agile. So the project manager thinks that they will lose their job because they think that in Agile there is only team members, Scrum Master, product owner. Is it right? Is it correct what this project manager thinks? Yes, because the Agile team doesn't include a project manager. Yes, what the project manager thinks is right, because the project manager either should convert to a Scrum Master role or look for a new opportunity in an organization following the predictive approach. No, what the project manager thinks is wrong, because the project manager can work as a product owner since both roles are similar. No, what the project manager thinks is wrong. Actually, they can continue working as a project manager in an Agile organization, but they will be more of a facilitator. They will become a facilitator. And this answer D actually is the right one. That's the right answer. And this is what was in PMI's mindset, in relation to the project manager's role in an Agile organization or in an Agile project. Okay, so in an Agile organization or an Agile project, the project manager actually can stay as a project manager, can continue working as a project manager, but become more of a facilitator. So the project manager does not have to convert to a Scrum Master or to a product owner. Actually, no, they can be called still a project manager, but be more of a facilitator. Remember, guys, this is in PMI's mindset in the PMP exam. Because if you will take a Scrum Master exam or product owner exam, actually it's slightly different. Okay, there is no such a term as project manager. Okay, now the third fundamental role, the third core role in Scrum is the self-organized and self-managed team, which we call the development team or the project team. So usually in Scrum, this team is from 3 to 9 people. I'm talking about the development team. Now, by saying development team, we don't mean just the software developers, and not necessarily in a software development environment. So that's why in the PMP exam, we really rarely use the term development team. We mostly use project team, execution team, performing team, etc. So they should be between 3 to 9 people. Okay, not more than 9 people, because if the development team or the execution team will exceed 9 people, then we go for large scale Scrum or Scrum of Scrums. So this team manages the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is a document which contains the work to be performed for each sprint in particular. Okay, they're all accountable. Okay, for the work to be carried out in the sprint. They should be dedicated to the project, so preferably not shared among projects. They're accountable for delivering the potentially releasable product increments, or the potentially shippable PSPI or RPI, which are the increments of the product which are developed in each sprint. They should participate in the sprint events, sprint planning meeting, daily meeting, review meeting, retrospective meeting. They're empowered. Okay, so they can make their own decisions, they can plan their own work. No one tells them what to do. Remember this. No one tells the development team, no one tells the Scrum team what to do. They decide what to do. The product owner will tell them what they need what the product owner needs. So the product owner will tell them, I need you to complete for me this and this and that requirements. And that's it. And the team, the Scrum team, they will decide by themselves how to do that work. Okay, they're also called the project team, as we said. So their goals are, in order to become self-organized, self-managed, first of all, they need to understand the project vision. And here the product owner is responsible for explaining the project vision to them. They need to leverage on their cross-functional expertise, since all of them are T-shaped people, not I-shaped, more of T-shaped. We talked about this in the third chapter. Okay, they should deliver tangible results. Okay, they should be capable of delivering tangible results. And each one of them should be proactively seeking work. No one in the team should be sitting and waiting for someone to tell them what to do. No one will tell you what to do. If you're part of the Scrum team, no one will tell you what to do. No, you should pick the work by yourself. Do you know why? Because you're self-organized and you're self-managed. And the sprint backlog here, all the work to be carried out for the sprint and in the sprint has already been defined. So you should know which work actually fits with your set of skills. Okay, so and each one of the team, the Scrum team, should be able to execute the work by themselves, not wait for the others to to show them all the time how to do things, because that will slow the team down, because they are sprinting. They're running as fast as they can. That's what sprinting means. Okay? And each one of them should be open to learning new things and also improve their way of doing work. They should be continuously upgrading their knowledge and skills. Okay? That's what a Scrum team should do. And here, the Scrum Master will help them achieve all these goals, except for the first one, which is understanding the project vision. That's done by the product owner. In case of the product owner's absence, is the project manager in the PMP context. Let's have a question or two. Since switching to the agile approach, a project manager has been encouraging their team to be self-organizing by allowing them to decide on how to execute their assigned work. What is the main aspect of a self-organizing team? It gives more responsibility to the project manager. It gives more responsibility to the agile team. It allows the team to deliver a working product without external dependencies, or it gives team members higher visibility of the product. Now, being self-organized does not mean you will deliver without any dependencies or you would have higher visibility of the product. No, being self-organized means you will have more responsibility as a team. Okay, it doesn't mean that there is more responsibility, for the project manager. No, so self-organizing, they are responsible for planning, defining how to do the work and committing to their work. What is the most important characteristic of an agile team? Their ability to create and manage their own work schedule, their ability to be flexible and adaptable, their ability to accurately plan the project, or their ability to simultaneously work on their tasks. Now, the main or most important characteristic of an agile team is not to simultaneously work on their tasks or to accurately plan the project, because we don't plan the entire project, in agile, because we plan sprint by sprint. We finish the first sprint, then we move on to the next second sprint, and we plan it. We plan, plan it, in the first day. Then once we finish it, we move on to the third sprint, and we conduct a planning meeting in the first day, etc. Okay, so actually, the right answer is to be flexible and adaptable. That's the main characteristic of an agile team. They're flexible, adaptable, and it's not like they manage their own schedule, because you're always tied to the release plan, which was created by the product owner. Okay, so that's why it's not answer A. Now, we told you that we have some good news for you. Okay, and this is not part, this is really to help you. I know that many people are interested in getting the Scrum Master certification. Many people are interested in getting the product owner certification. Okay, many people are interested in becoming agile coaches. And guys, that we in Ben Hamuda Consulting, we are ATP, authorized training partner of the famous Scrum accreditation body, which is Scrum Study. So, therefore, we decided to offer you 35% discount, okay, on the Scrum Master SMC certification, on the Product Owner SPOC certification, and of course, the Agile Master AMC certification. This discount is valid until the 18th of February 2025. Now, we will share with you tomorrow. We will share with you tomorrow the link to the discount. However, if you head over to www.benhamudaconsulting.com, benhamud-consulting.com/professional certification, you will see the original price and the discounted price. If you click on any of the certifications mentioned here, you will see that already 35% has been discounted. And by the way, let me give you a little information. The Scrum Master SMC on the website of the organism Scrum Study, it costs $450. But on our website is actually offered for 319 euros. And after this discount of 35%, it's even less. It's, I think, 200 and I don't know, like 209 euros maybe, or 200, I think, something like that. So actually, it's a huge discount. So if you compare the prices on, which we will share with you, in the form which we will share with you. If you compare the prices to their original prices on the website of Scrum Study organization, is almost half. Okay. And we have an additional good news for you. Many people would ask us how can they access the full recordings of the sessions which we've had so far. Okay. Many people asked us that. Many people actually they told us they're interested in getting the full presentation so they can, review it at any moment, at any time. Okay. And therefore, actually, we're helping you here. Okay. You can request access to our internal education platform. Okay, and for as little as 159 euros or 499 dinars for Tunisian dinars, or 159 euros, almost the same in dollars, I guess. Okay, you can get access to our internal education platform, which contains the recordings of the full sessions. And by the way, the recordings are available in English, in French with Arabic explanation, and in English with Arabic explanation. And also in our internal education platform, you can have access to exams in English, in French, quizzes, the course presentation in English, in French, the study material, okay, the success guide, which is something new, okay. Actually, it's something very helpful. Is really no one has got access to it yet. It's something fresh from today, okay? And by accessing to our internal education platform, you will automatically get the 35-hour course completion certification of the PMP, which you will require, for submitting or to, for the PMP application. Okay, so these are our good news to you guys: the discount of the Scrum Master SMC, Product Owner SPOC, and Agile Master AMC. And also, we wanted to explain to you guys how can you get access to our internal education platform. We will share all of these links, the both links with you on WhatsApp, and so you can benefit from that. Okay. Now, all right. By the way, you can make payments through local or international bank transfer in whatever country you are. We have actually, you will learn that, while you apply, or you can pay through PayPal, Western Union, etc. Okay. All right. So this is just to help you guys. We really wanted to share this good news with you because many people are interested in the Scrum Master, Product Owner, Agile Master certifications, and also many people are interested in getting the full access to our internal education platform and benefit from all these materials, exams, etc. Okay, so this is what we wanted to share with you. All right, now let's move on. Now, once the Scrum project has been established, okay, the product owner actually is the first person that is assigned to the project by the sponsor. So the sponsor assigns the product owner, and the product owner will have to go through the business case. Because also in Scrum, the project is launched after a business case was conducted, a study phase was conducted, and the product owner will need to read the business case in order to understand the context in which this project was launched. Now, the product owner, the first thing the product owner does is creating the product vision board. Now, let me tell you, the product vision board is kind of similar to the waterfall charter, even though there is something called agile charter. But in the PMP exam, mainly in agile, we refer to the product vision board, but it can be also sometimes called the project charter and act as the same or act, for the same purpose. Now, the product vision board, okay, the product owner it's a one-page document. Now, let me tell you, this is a one-page document. It's got 5 sections. In section 1, the product owner, will explain in one sentence what is the vision of the project. For example, we have a company that, produces clothes and shoes. So it's a clothing manufacturing company. And this company, has seen a decline in their sales volumes. And after investigation, they found out that actually the decline is because or is due to their absence in the digital world. So this company decided, or the company owners decided to create a website, okay? A website so they can have more of international exposure. So, in the vision statement, since the product owner is assigned to the project of creating the company's website, so the project is about developing a website to sell clothes online internationally. That's the vision of the project. The target groups, here are the target groups. Who are the groups or who will be using the website? Now, by saying target groups, we don't mean who will be wearing the clothes only. No, who will be actually visiting the website, who will be using the website, because here the product is the website. So we can have users like IT support, marketing team. These are internal users, maybe. We can have B2C like pregnant women, families, and we can even have B2B target groups like retailers, sport companies, since this company also makes sport wares, for men and women. Okay, so here the product owner needs to define the target groups. All right. Then in the section here, the product owner will list the most important need per group. Okay, the user needs. Like for the IT support, probably the most important need is to manage accesses. For the pregnant women, the most important need is to see clothes for boys and girls, like, okay, in different sizes. For sport companies, for example, the most important need is to understand, for each article or each product mentioned or shown on the website, from which fabric or from which cloth is it made? Okay. So this is, how the product owner would list the main needs of each user, because then the full list of the needs will be then captured in the product backlog. Then here the product owner will describe the product, like the main key 3 to 5 features of the product. Like, for example, the website has got a photo gallery, has got an integrated payment system, and also, has got a account creation. So, like loyal users can, have their own accounts and benefit from some discounts. And then here, the product owner, in case, the company is actually creating its own product released, which it intends, to release to the entire market, the product owner will need, to explain what kind of financial value, business value this project will bring to the company. Like, for example, opening up a new revenue stream, how much in percentage or in numbers, increasing our market share by, like, how much in percentage or in numbers. So this product vision board is created by the product owner, in order to help then later on the team understand, what's the vision of this project, what is it supposed to do, the product, etc. Okay. Now, Just side note about the cost in Scrum. So always the cost in Scrum can be either predetermined, like given in advance by the sponsor, like a fixed amount, we should not exceed, or maybe given by the customer, or can be then calculated based on the backlog. Like once we know the work which will be carried out for the project in the project backlog and the product backlog, then we can make an estimate and calculate it. Okay, so this is a side note for the cost in Scrum. Okay, and also the product owner might need to create personas. Now, a persona, this is a fictionary or a fictive character or an avatar, okay, a profile for each target group. So for each target group, there will be a persona or an avatar, so, a fake name and surname with a fake photo of someone who would represent that entire group, like, the group of the retailers, the group of the sports company, the group of the families, for example, okay? So each group will be represented by a persona. This persona is created by the product owner, maybe because the product owner knows the target groups. The persona will include, like, information about key demographics, like of the target group, defining traits, maybe some about section, maybe some professional background, personal preferences, and whatever information is put here, in this description of the persona, it should help the team understand what are the main characteristics of our target groups. Okay, each target group. So for each target group, there will be a persona. Okay. Now, the product owner will then, for each target group, will try to meet with a few people belonging to each target group. Okay, that's generally how it's done, like having focus groups for each target group in order to collect requirements. Now, the product owner will start collecting requirements. Now, let's suppose, let me give you an example. For that clothing manufacturing company, the product owner will have a meeting, with pregnant women, our families, like mothers, pregnant women and mothers. Okay, in one meeting, so the product owner probably will meet with 5 to 10 women, either selected randomly, or they're picked, because they're the most loyal customers, for our company, etc. Okay, so the product owner in that meeting will ask, the ladies to share with him, let's say it's a him, okay, their needs, their requirements for what? For the clothes? No, for the website, because the product is the website. So the company would like to build the product based on the point of view or on the requirements of the customers, because who will be using the website mainly is the customers. So you need to create a website that fits or has got features which are needed by your customers, potential users. Okay, so here one of the ladies raised her hand and said, well, I'm a stay-at-home mother. I delivered the baby a few months ago, so I'm enjoying my paid leave for 2 years offered by the government. Okay, and I definitely need to buy clothes so often because my baby is growing fast. So when I visit your website, each time I like an article or a product, I would like, to hit on it, like, to flag it, maybe mark it, and then I would like to see it in some sort of favorites. Okay. So later on in the evening, when my husband returns home from work, I would like, to check with him, those products or those clothes which I liked. And I don't want to be searching for, wondering which trousers did I like, which pullovers, which babies, newborns clothes, etc. I just want like to go to that favorite list, okay, or the list of favorites, and just show my husband what I picked, what I selected, and then we will buy whatever we agree on. So here, what the lady described, this is called an epic. Like this is a large requirement or a requirement which hasn't been studied in details yet. Okay. This epic now written by the product owner in this form, because this is the form we use in Scrum. As a customer, I want to be able to have wish lists so that I can come back to buy products later. Now, this form is called the user story form, the user story template, which got 3 parts. Part one is as a, and what type of user is this person? Like, who are we building it for? Who is the user? So as a customer, as a mother, as a sport person, as a retailer, for example, okay? I want, and here we will list the feature or the requirement, like what are we building? Okay, this will help the team understand what are we building so that what is the benefit for the customer, for the user? What is the value for the user? Why are we building it? What is the value for the customer? Okay, so the product owner could write the epic in this form. Later on, when the product owner will deep dive, will analyze this epic in details, the product owner will split it into what we call user stories. So user stories, these are refined requirements which are of small size, because the epic is of a big size. Stories or user stories are requirements of a smaller size, and stories often come from the refinement of the epic. So here, for example, in this theme we have here, which is a wish list, this is the theme, this is the topic. The epic was split into two stories. The first user story, as a customer, I want to be able to save a product in my wish list so that I can view it again later. And the second user story, as a customer, I want to be able to view my wish list so that I can buy items from it. Theme, epic, and stories, these are maintained by the product owner in the product backlog. Later on, in the planning meeting of the sprint, the user stories, which will be picked for that particular sprint in order of priority, each user story later on will be broken down into tasks, and this will be done by the development team or the Scrum team and put in the sprint backlog. We will see that later, okay? Okay. Now, remember, a user story needs to be short, a very simple sentence, and the product owner should write it from the perspective of the user. Okay, each user story must provide value or benefit. Okay, and it must be small. If the user story is actually big, it describes more than one piece of functionality, then it has to be split. And for each user story, the product owner must define the acceptance criteria. We will see that in details later. We cannot accept a user story in a sprint without an acceptance criteria. We see that as part of the definition of ready. Okay. Now, a user story also can be independent. Like ideally in Scrum, each user story is independent. So we can, because each user story at the end, once developed, it will give an increment of the product. So when user stories are independent, not really, let's say, not really related to each other. So finishing user story means we finished a working increment. Okay. User stories can be negotiable. Okay. In case we need to, understand it further. Okay, or okay, can be should be valuable, should be estimatable. We will see later on how to estimate user stories, using story points or different estimation mechanisms. Generally, user story should be small, definitely smaller than a sprint. So in a sprint, actually, we should complete multiple user stories. Ideally, user story is 1 to 2 business days. Ideally that's the size. Actually, that's the maximum size. Ideally, user story is a couple of hours big. Okay, couple of hours big. All right, that's like the ideal size of user story, maximum 1 or 2 days. And definitely user story should be testable. Okay, we can, in Scrum, in the agile mindset, the team needs to test what was delivered, okay, or what was created before being delivered to the product owner or to the customer. Okay, and as we said each user story which the customer refines out of an epic, or which the customer gets, as a requirement from the users or the customers or the stakeholders, each user story should have its own acceptance criteria. Okay, there should not be any user story without an acceptance criteria. Now, let's have an example here. We have, we go back to this clothing manufacturing company. Okay. So one of the customers said, well, as a customer, as an online customer, I would be using your website. I want, whenever I will be using your website and paying online, I definitely want to have a strong password so I can make sure that my credit card information is secure. So that's the user story of this customer.
Now here the product owner will need to define the acceptance criteria with this user. So the product owner will ask the user, so what do you mean by what do you mean by strong password? Let's have an acceptance criteria. So the customer says, you know what? I would like the password to have eight characters, and these eight characters should be at least we should have at least one character from each of the following four groups. I would like my password to contain lowercase alphabet, uppercase alphabet, numeric value, and special characters from these ones here. So here, the acceptance criteria has been defined in numbers. 8 characters, one character from each of the following groups. Okay, we know the numeric, 1 to 9. We know the lowercase alphabet, A to Z. We know the uppercase alphabet, A to Z. And here are the special characters, even they have been defined. Okay, so the acceptance criteria has been clearly set. No place for ambiguity. Okay, so the acceptance criteria is very important to have. Once you, as a product owner, you define the requirements, you need to have the acceptance criteria for each requirement. It will help with managing expectations. Okay, so when the team works on developing that user story, they know what does it require to be accepted by the customer. So they know the expectations. Okay, it also helps define the scope. It reduces ambiguity because we know exactly what the customer wants. We will build it for them. Okay, it can even help establishing the testing criteria for the quality assurance team. So when the testing team they will test, they will know how the performance of that increment needs to be, how it should look like, sorry, how it should be, okay, how it should be, okay, so they know what they will work towards that acceptance criteria. And also it defends against any scope creep mid-sprint, any changes to the scope, any expansion of the scope, because if you don't define your acceptance criteria, your stakeholders can simply change their requirements or their expectations because you haven't defined an acceptance criteria. Okay, so if we would like to summarize it, so in the product backlog, we have the epics, which, each epic later on will be refined and split into user stories, and each user story will have its set of acceptance criterions. Our acceptance criteria is the same. User story can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 acceptance criteria, as many as necessary. Okay, let's have a few questions. A Scrum team is preparing user stories for the next sprint. The product owner and development team discuss the acceptance criteria for each story. Why is it important to define clear acceptance criteria? To ensure the Scrum Master can track team performance, to provide a basis for user story estimation, to define the conditions under which a user story is considered complete, or to document all possible test cases before development begins. Now, absolutely defining clear acceptance criteria is to know all the conditions which need to be taken into consideration in order to consider user story as complete. Defining a clear acceptance criteria is important, not because we need to ensure the Scrum Master can track the team performance. No, not to provide the basis for user story estimation. No, actually not that. Okay, and it's not because we would like to document all the possible test cases before we start development. No, actually we want to define all the conditions under which a user story is considered complete. One more question. A team is currently working on a mobile app solution. During sprint execution, one of the developers requires clarification about the acceptance criteria for a particular task. What should the project manager do to obtain the information required by the developer? Request direction from the project sponsor, write an email to the client requesting clarification, seek support from the development manager, or work with the product owner to clarify the requirement. Now, since the product owner is mentioned as one of the options, here are the answers. Then definitely, in order to clarify the information needed by the developer regarding the acceptance criteria of a particular task, the project manager, you see here we use the project manager, we don't use the Scrum Master, is the same thing. In the PMP exam, it's almost the same thing in the agile context, okay? So here, the project manager needs to work with the product owner to clarify the requirement. We don't ask the sponsor for a direction. We don't ask support from the development manager because actually this is probably an organizational role. It's not a project role, and it's not needed, to send an email to the client because actually we have the voice of the client, we have the voice of the customer, which is the product owner. Okay. Now, all of these user stories and epics, they should be put in the product backlog. Now, the product backlog, can look like this, not necessarily like this, but can look like this. It contains the user stories with the three parts, like as a role, I want the feature so that the objective or the value, the acceptance criteria of each user story, the priority of each user story, in which sprint each user story will be carried out, and the status like done, in progress, or not started. And as we can see here, user stories from number 1 to number 6, they have been done in sprint 1. User stories from number 7 to number 9, they're in progress in sprint 2. But user stories 9, 10, 11, maybe 12, 13, 14, sorry, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, etc. We don't know in which sprint we will work on them because actually we don't do planning in advance in Agile. No. First, we must finish sprint 2, and then based on the results of sprint 2, and based on the refinement which the product owner was making during the sprint 2, the second sprint, we will know which user stories we will take into the sprint 3. Because maybe this requirement number 10, maybe it's an epic. Maybe it will be split into 3 user stories. And therefore, we will have 10, 11, 12 out of number 10, and then 11, 12 here, they will become number 13, 14, for example. So no planning in advance. Once we start the third sprint, and in the planning meeting of the third sprint, then we will know which requirements will go into this sprint. Because again, order of priorities can change of the requirements. Maybe the customer will change their order of priorities. Maybe we will have new requirements that will be like they will go as priority or highest priority. Maybe there are some epics which will be split into user stories, etc. Okay. Now, there are different prioritization techniques. One of the most famous prioritization techniques is the Moscow method. Is this an acronym or, yeah, sort of an acronym? The Moscow, the MO stands for must have. These are the most vital features which the product cannot live without. And these features will go into the first version, usually, which is called the basic version or the minimum viable product version, etc. The S, it stands for the should have. These are important features, but they are not vital. They come second in priority. The CO, that stands for could have. These are features which are nice to have in case there is budget, there is time left, or they're justified. And the W, that stands for won't have. These are features which don't provide any value, and we don't work on them because actually they will consume effort and time for little value. So we keep them on a side. We don't delete them. We keep them on a side. Maybe their value will change later. Okay. There is another prioritization technique which is called the prioritization matrix. Okay. Now this prioritization matrix has got 4 quadrants. Now for requirements which require low effort and they have high value, so we do them first. Okay. For the requirements which have high value but require high effort, we do them next. Okay. Requirements which require low effort and they provide little value, these we plan them for later. But requirements which have low value and require high effort, okay, we don't do them at all. Okay. And in our internal documentation, you have also like document called the prioritization guide for the product owners. You can access it, if you have access to our internal documentation. Okay. Now, remember, whenever whenever the product owner is prioritizing, actually, whatever items have value add, these items should be optimized, okay, because the customer is willing to pay for them. Whatever items they don't provide any business value, they don't have any business add value, but there must to do, like there must to be carried out because they come from legal or regulatory requirements. We do them like as minimum, but any requirements which don't provide any value, we eliminate them because the customer is not willing to pay for them. Okay. Okay. All right, guys, let's go back. Let's continue our session. Now, we have seen in the first part before the break, the different roles and how the product owner collects the requirements and puts the requirements in the product backlog. But actually, the product backlog does not contain
only user stories. Not only. Actually, there are many different items in the product backlog, where the product backlog could contain features which are written in the form of a user story, like as a I wants of that, or in a form of a use case, like description of how a particular feature should function, or even just as a sentence in a free form text without the need of having a certain particular form. The product backlog can also contain defects, like these are errors or issues in the product which must be fixed. It can even contain some technical work, like, for example, setting up a machine. Setting up a machine, this is work which consumes effort from the team, even though this will not be seen by the customer in the final product, but still it's a work which consumes effort. The product backlog could contain even knowledge acquisition, like, for example, having a training to learn about a new technology to perform our work better or to respond to a customer needs. You can even have the action items to respond to risks, like a risk action plan, okay, for the prioritized risks. Even sometimes the product backlog items can contain some marketing work to be performed, especially like in a B2C environment. So actually, any work which would consume effort, which would require effort from the team, it should be included in the product backlog. Okay, as long as that work can be planned and not, will not be finished in that sprint where it's being done. Okay. Let's have a question. This is a good one, actually. A project sponsor assigned a product owner to an agile project. After a few iterations, the sponsor announced that since the product owner seemed to be oblivious of their role and responsibilities, they will be replaced by someone else. What did the first product owner probably do wrong? Tell the agile team what work they should do, tell the agile team how they should do their work, tell the agile team when the work needs to be done, or tell the agile team why the work is needed. Now, now the product owner can tell the team, the agile team or the team, what work they should do. Like, the product owner could tell the team, I would like you to finish this user story and this user story and this user story in this particular sprint. The product owner could tell the team when the work needs to be done or and why the work is needed. But no one tells the team how they should do their work, and that includes the product owner and the scrum master. No one tells the team how they should do their work. The team is self-organized and self-managed. The product owner, the scrum master, the project manager don't tell the team how they should do their work. The project manager does not assign tasks, neither does the product owner. Now, we talked about use case, like which could be, part of the product backlog. This is a form of a use case. This is a description of the use case can be. For example, here we have an airline or an airline company, and we're building an airline reservation system for them. So this is actually a use case diagram. Like, here we have the system, we have three parties, interacting with the system. We have the passenger who can, have a login, can make a login, check the availability of the flights, book a ticket, can even choose the seat, make the payment, like, cancel the ticket, check the flight status, or even, reschedule their flight. The admin of the administrator of the system at the company can cancel a ticket or can update the flight schedule. And the bank, once the passenger is making a payment, they can validate the card. So these are, this is how a system works, or a use case of a system, for example. Okay. Now the product owner will definitely need to make a release plan, a release schedule. I know sometimes it's called a product backlog, even though a product backlog does not look like this. Okay, but just I wanted to mention like product product roadmap. I don't mean product backlog. Sometimes can be called product roadmap, even though product roadmap doesn't look like this. It looks more like what we saw in chapter 1 when we saw the product life cycle. Okay, that's a product roadmap. Okay, now when you as a product owner will be making a release plan, a release schedule. Actually, you can make these release schedule in consultation with the team, and of course, you can check also with the stakeholders. We talk about that in a moment. Now, generally, how does a release schedule look like? Now, of course, it depends on the project, on the company, on the customer, on the contract, on the industry. But let's take a typical release schedule. We have a 9-month project. In the project, we have sprints. Each sprint is 4 week long. Okay. Now, let's suppose the product owner decided, to have 3 sprints where the must-have items will be completed. And then at the end of the third sprint, we will have the first release. The first release is called MVP, minimum viable product. This version, some people call it test version, beta version, prototype. The purpose of this version is to test the market, get feedback from the market, to know if we're going in the right direction with this project or not. Now, if the market confirms that things are going well, right, then of course, we start this. The product owner plans to have fourth, fifth, and sixth sprint. Sixth sprint. Always, each sprint is 4 week long because in Scrum, all the sprints should have the same exact duration. We don't, have different durations for the sprints. Always the same exact duration. Okay. And here in the fourth, fifth, and sixth sprint, the product owner, chose to, have the should have items, should have requirements, and then at the end of the sixth sprint, an MMP will be delivered. MMP is a minimum marketable product. Minimum marketable product. MMP. Okay. And in case this is a B2C project or product, and this product will require marketing activities. Then marketing activities will start in sprint 4 because once the work is done for the release in sprint 6, the market should be already waiting for the product because the marketing team, they did their job. And we don't do marketing after we finish sprint 6 because then it will be too late. And then the product owner plans in this release schedule to have sprints 7, 8, 9, always of the same duration, 4 weeks, to finish the remaining requirements in the should have plus the could have, and have a product final version. So this is what we call a typical basic release plan or release schedule, which is a good start, for companies, startups, if they want really, to apply Scrum on their project. Okay. Now, how the product owner would determine the number of releases? Now, the product owner could check the customer expectations, or maybe they're mentioned in the contract. Maybe the competition will oblige the product owner, to have shorter cycles for the releases. Maybe there is a technology constraint, like if we don't deliver our product now, then the technology we used might be obsolete. So we need to deliver as quickly as possible. Maybe there is a need for an early investment. Maybe there are billing constraints, so we need to have shorter release cycles. Or maybe we need to abide the law, like the law obliges us not to take longer than 3 months, to deliver a product version, a law, etc. Okay, so there can be different reasons, to determine the number of releases, and the product owner could use different release planning tools such as Jira, Trello, ClickUp, ScrumGit, iScrum, etc. Okay, different tools. Okay, let's have a question. A Scrum team is working on a product with multiple releases planned. The product owner is collaborating with the stakeholders to determine the release schedule. What is the primary consideration when defining the release schedule in Agile? The availability of the development team, the competition of all features in the product backlog, the completion of all features in the product backlog, the delivery of valuable increments that meet customer needs, or the project manager's approval of the release plan. Now, definitely, the primary consideration when defining the release is to define what really makes value, delivers value incrementally, preferably incrementally to the customer. Okay, so absolutely is answer C. It's not the availability of the development team. No, that's not was the primary consideration when defining the release cycle schedule, even though it is important. Okay, even though it is important. It's not the completion of all features in product backlog. Actually, that doesn't mean anything. And it's not the project manager's approval of the release plan. No, it's definitely how to deliver value, to the customer. Okay. Now, in Agile, there are 5 levels of planning. We wanted to share with you this summary page of the Agile levels of planning, so to help you better understand of where you are. So when we start an Agile project, first the product owner starts by providing the product vision, like what to build, for whom, why to build it, when to have it, what are the main constraints and assumptions of this project. Then define a product roadmap, or maybe we can call it a release, yeah, maybe release plan, maybe, okay, like, yeah, product roadmap, like, have how many releases we will have, what is the date of each release, what is the theme or feature set, like must have, should have, could have, the objective, like test the market, win the competition, and the development approach, is it iterative, is it incremental, etc. Then for each release, we can have planning, like how many iterations, what's the team capacity, which user stories will go in, which priority of the user stories, the sizes, maybe also make some estimates, have a definition of done. But then the exact planning starts with the iterations. For each iteration, we will have an exact planning, like which user stories will be part of that iteration, what are their tasks, what is the definition of done, we will see that later, what is the level of effort, commitment of the team, etc. And then daily, we will have a daily planning meeting. Like, what did I do yesterday? Everyone will answer this question. What will I be doing today? And is there anything blocking me? So these are the 5 levels of agile planning. Okay. Now, what's the difference between a product roadmap and a release plan? Usually, a product roadmap it spans over years. It covers the product lifecycle. A release plan is usually related to a project, and it spans only over a few months. Okay, that's the main difference between them. And usually before launching a new version of product, usually we have a blackout period. Like for example, currently we have version 4.7 of the product. Then we have a blackout period, like, we wait, we don't do anything until we go live. And then the new version, is being used. Okay. That's called a blackout period. But always remember, and I think this slide is very important for you guys. Guys, please pay attention to this slide. I think there is something you want on this slide. I think there is something you're interested in this slide. Pay attention to it. Remember, the first release is preferably a version which can be used to test the market. Okay, this is usually the first release. Okay, this first release can be called MVP, as we've called it earlier, like a minimum viable product. It might be called a prototype, okay, or maybe a proof of concept. Now, let me give you quickly the difference between a proof of concept, POC, a prototype, and an MVP. A proof of concept, this is usually a theoretical presentation of a certain product idea or a concept, okay? And it's validated on papers whether it works or not. This is called a proof of concept. A prototype, this is usually a body built yeah, somehow we build the shape of the product, but doesn't really contain any functions, doesn't really function. Okay, whereas an MVP is usually the basic version of the product which is released into the market to test the market. Now, sometimes the PMP exam, MVP and prototype could mean the same. Okay, it's POC is rarely used like a proof of concept. And again, as I said, guys, I think on this slide, there is something you want. Okay, definitely there is something you want. Please pay attention to it. Now, what's the difference between an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, and an MMP, which is a minimum marketable product? Now, an MVP is not a finished product. An MMP, a minimum marketable product, definitely is. Okay, the MVP does not have to be functional. Okay, MMP, yes, it has to be fully functional. Minimum in MVP, like minimum viable product, minimum means only the key features. Minimum, the term minimum in MMP means no unnecessary features. So all the features are necessary. The goal of the MVP is to test the market, and generally with the early adopters. Okay, with the early adopters, these are users who volunteer to test the product. Like for example, you use an Android system on your mobile phone, and Google announces that they're releasing, let's say, Android 15, maybe now. Okay, so and they ask the users who would like to volunteer, to test
early version of Android 15, and they warn you that it's not a stable version, but if you volunteer, then you could be like part of the early people who enjoy using this feature and then provide feedback. So those are called early adopters. They adopt that version or that product, they use it, they test it, and then provide feedback, and they know it's not the final version. The goal of the MMP is actually to have a product with user favored features, like in order to win the competition, if there is competition. And once we launch an MVP, the result is to have user feedback and we reduce the risk. What do we mean by risk reduction? In case our product is not actually appealing, okay, then we can simply we can simply like change the path, maybe change the plan. Okay, that's we know it based on the user feedback. For the MMP, the result is to have a reduced time to market and we reduce costs. Okay, like to reach the market as quickly as possible. All right, that's the difference between MVP and MMP. Let's have a question or two. WinDev is an IT company based in Tokyo. Its latest project involves creating a mobile app for online training. The project manager decides to build a prototype for the app. What added value do prototypes provide? Select two answers. Allow for early feedback on the requirements, reduce project cost, allow the project to be completed faster, or help to address ambiguities. Prototypes don't reduce cost and don't allow the project to be completed faster. Prototypes allow to collect early feedback and address any ambiguities by having feedback from the user and knowing what's right, what's wrong, what went well, what went not, what not. Okay. Now, once the product owner has finished building, let's say the product backlog or most of the product backlog content, depending on if we're in iterative or incremental approach, whether the scope is really defined or not, then the team now or the sprint now can start. Now the term sprint means the team is running. Now many people think this the term sprint means it's a time cycle, time interval, and the team is doing work at that time interval. No, actually sprint means the team has to run as quickly as possible in order to fulfill their commitment, what they committed to, the plan to reach the goal. Okay, so in Scrum, the sprints they always have the same duration. Okay, and usually this is how a sprint looks like. So let's take a standard sprint of 4 weeks. Here we have a standard sprint of 4 weeks. The first day is timely boxed to 8 hours, and here we use the term time boxing. So the first day is a sprint planning meeting, and its maximum duration is 8 hours. And the last day of the sprint, actually, we have two meetings. We have a sprint review meeting of maximum duration of 4 hours because it's timely boxed. And then after that, we have a sprint retrospective meeting with a maximum duration of 2 to 4 hours, but let's say it's 2 hours because usually people get bored, of a 4 hour retrospective meeting. Between the first day and the last day, we have the development work being carried out. We have the execution, okay? And something to keep on mind. Once the planning meeting on the first day is over, the sprint is frozen. No changes are allowed in the sprint. Right after the end of the planning meeting, no changes are allowed in the sprint, which means the content of the sprint cannot change in terms of user stories and acceptance criteria. We cannot change the goal of the sprint, and we don't change the duration of the sprint. And during this execution, the team will have a daily 15-minute meeting. Okay. Now, these are the maximum durations in case the sprint is 4 week long. Now, let's suppose the sprint is a 3 week long. So, what to do? Then, for the sprint planning meeting, for the sprint review meeting, and for the sprint retrospective meeting, we multiply the durations by 3 and divide them by 4. So, therefore, the planning meeting becomes 8 hours, the review meeting 3 hours, and the retrospective meeting can be 1.5 hour or 2 hours maximum. But the daily meeting of 15 minutes doesn't change. Its duration doesn't change regardless of the length of the sprint. So please remember this slide 365. It's quite important. There are many questions in the PMP exam about this slide. Okay.
Now, let's start with the sprint planning meeting. How is this conducted? Now, usually the product owner, the development team, and the scrum master, because the scrum master is the one who facilitated the meeting, who organized the meeting, they will enter the war room. And this planning meeting is actually split into two parts. First part, which is the shorter part, here the team, they will calculate their capacity. Okay, they will try to estimate in story points. We will see later on what a story point means. How much is their capacity? Now, to make things easier for you, since in the PMP exam there is no calculation question about calculating the team capacity, almost no question. Okay, I would say almost no question about calculating team capacity. Okay, so let's suppose the team, they calculate their capacity, like, they multiply the number of people available for the sprint by the number of hours per day, which is 7 hours or 8 hours, times the number of days. Now, if we have a 4 week sprint, then the number of days, working days, is 18, not 20. Take into consideration 5 working days a week. Why not 20? Because the first day is planning meeting, the last day is review and retrospective. So actually, the team, they have got only 18 days of development work. But again, so the team, they can calculate their capacity by multiplying number of people by number of hours by number of days, and whatever result they get, they don't measure it. They don't measure it in hours, but they take story point as a unit. Story point, or SP, is just a unit called story point. Now, in most basic companies, one story point equals 1 hour. So if we have 7 people in the sprint, working in the sprint, okay. All right. And those 7 people will work 7 hours daily, because there is 1 hour taken out because of the daily meeting and because of the chit chat and stuff. And they will work 18 days in that 4 week sprint. Then the total of 7 people working 7 hours, 18 days, 882 hours. But instead of saying hours, we say story points. Okay, to make things easier for you, actually. Okay, even though in some companies one story point could mean or could equal 2 hours of work, worth of work, or 4 hours or 8 hours, but we want to make things simpler for you. So let's suppose one story point equals 1 hour of work. So actually, the team's capacity here is 882 story points. So once the team, they have defined their capacity, then the product owner here will define the goal for the sprint. So the product owner could say, okay, the goal of the sprint is to release an MVP, for example, or for example, to fix all the issues we had from the previous sprints, etc. Okay, so this is defining the sprint goal. That's like done in 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum. Okay, then starts the planning of the tasks and the work to be carried out in the sprint. How does that work? Now let's look at the right side of the slide. Okay, that's a very important slide. Now here we have the product backlog, which is maintained and managed by the product owner. Here we have all the user stories, all the requirements, and they're put in order of priority. Here we have the must-have user stories in dark blue, the should-have in light blue, okay, and the could-have, and this is in like pink. I think it's pink. Okay. Now, how the planning goes? The product owner will pull out from this product owner the first user story. The product owner will read it, for the Scrum team. We'll explain it. We'll explain the user story. We'll explain what the customer really wants, the requirement. We'll even explain the acceptance criteria of this user story and any related specifications to this user story. Now, the team, they must make sure they understand what the customer really wants. The project manager or the scrum master, the facilitator, must encourage them to ask questions if they don't understand something or if they have doubts, because the scrum master must help the team understand the requirement really well by encouraging them to ask the product owner questions, and the product owner should answer the team answer the team's questions. Okay, so now once the team have understood this requirement, this user story, now what they can do is they can try to estimate the size of this user story. And for this, we will use many different tools can be used. Now, in this section, we will focus on the planning poker, even though in chapter 6, we will actually see different estimation tools and techniques. Now, what's the planning poker? These are cards similar to the poker cards, or maybe the ballot cards. Now, each team member has got their poker cards. each team member. Okay. Now these poker cards can have different series, like a Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series is a series like each number is the total of the previous two numbers. Like here you have 0, 1, 2, and then 3 is the sum of 1 plus 2. 5 is the sum of 2 plus 3. 8 is the sum of 3 plus 5. 13 is the sum of 5 plus 8, etc. So each team member has got these planning pockets in their hands. Now, the Scrum Master or the facilitator will give them a minute or two. They will tell them, okay, guys, now I give you 1 or 2 minutes to think again about this user story, this requirement. And after the time is over, show me your estimate in story points, using these cards. How much do you think or do you estimate the size of this requirement to be? Now, after 1 or 2 minutes are gone, the Scrum Master, the facilitator, asks them, "Show me your estimates." Now, each team member will pull one card, of what they think is the estimate of the size of this user story. And of course, the estimate is not in hours; it's in story points. And we said that for now, to make things easy for you, we will assume that one story point equals 1 hour worth of work. So the Scrum Master, for example, notices that these 7 people. So the first person said 8 story points. Second person said 8 story points. Third person said 8 story points. Fourth person said 5 story points. Fifth person said 8 story points. Sixth person said 13 story points. And seventh person said 8 story points. So actually, we have 5 people who said 8 story points as an estimate for this user story. One said 5 story points, and the other one said 13. Now, there is no convergence here. Okay, so the Scrum Master will ask the person, the extremities, why did you say 5 story points as an estimate for this user story? Now, this person will explain their opinion, like, or their point of view. Maybe they know a way how to make work shorter or easier or faster, or maybe that's how they understand this requirement. And why did you say 13? Maybe this person sees a risk which the others didn't see, or maybe see some complexities in the user story, or maybe that's how they understand it. Now, while discussing the different estimates, is like this, the facilitator shouldn't give much room for discussion, otherwise the discussion wouldn't end. So it's just enough if the other team members hear the different opinions. Then the Scrum Master tells them, okay, you know what? I'll give you 1 more minute now to reflect on what your colleagues have said and provide your other estimate, okay? Based on the feedback of the extremities. After 1 minute is over, the Scrum Master now will ask them, show me your cards. Now the Scrum Master says that everyone in the team said 5 story points. So it seems like the team members were convinced by the opinion of that other colleague, other team member who said 5 story points because they know a way how to make things faster. Okay. All right. So now here, for this first user story, the estimate is 5 story points. After that, the team, they will create the tasks based on their profiles, which they need to carry out in order to finish this user story. Okay. Now, the team's capacity is 8. Remember, the team's capacity is 882, I think 882, we said, story points. 882 story points. Now, this first one, its size is just 5. So the team still has got capacity. So they will ask the product owner to now give them the next user story. And they will do the same, the same thing, the same drill. The product owner will read the user story, read the acceptance criteria, explain both of them, any other specifications, any other details. The team, they will ask their questions to make sure they understand it well. They will make their estimates using the planning poker. They agree on the estimate, define the tasks, and they do again the same process again and again until they reach their capacity, until they reach 800-ish. Okay, maybe not necessarily 882 story points, but maybe 800, 850, 20. They can leave some room, some buffer if they want to. And then these user stories, which the team have accepted to perform or to develop in the sprint with their tasks, they're put by the team in the sprint backlog. So this sprint backlog changes at the beginning of each sprint in the planning meeting, and the team will commit to completing these user stories and their respective tasks. Okay, so this is this is what happens in the planning meeting. This is what the product owner does, what the team does, and what the what the facilitator does. And we will see other things that happen in the planning meeting, that like the definition of ready. We will come to that later in a moment. Okay. Let's have a question. During an iteration of a project, a planned activity becomes more complex. The work should be delivered in the shortest time possible. What approach should be used in this situation? The team facilitator gets support from external team members. The team members brings in a specialist to help them. The product owner moves it to the product backlog, or the cross-functional team members work together to complete the activity. Now, if a task becomes complex, then the cross-functional team definitely they need to collaborate, work together to complete the activity because they are cross-functional. So with their specialties, they can collaborate, to resolve this complexity here. So the team facilitator doesn't bring in external members or specialists, and the PO doesn't take it out of the sprint. No, the cross-functional team they will work together to complete it. An agile coach has been hired by an organization to help them implement the Scrum framework. One of the team members asked them who should prioritize items in the sprint backlog. What was the agile coach's answer? The Scrum Master, the product owner, the cross-functional team members, or all of the above. Now, while the product owner is responsible for prioritizing items in the product backlog, it is absolutely the cross-functional team members who are responsible for prioritizing items in the sprint backlog. So please remember this. These are basic fundamental questions of Scrum, and you will have some of them in the PMP exam. Please pay attention to this. Now, uh, while the team is in the planning meeting, before accepting any user story into the sprint backlog. So I repeat this: the development team or the Scrum team, the Agile team, before accepting any user story into the sprint backlog, they need to make sure that this user story is actually ready to be part of that sprint. Now, what's the definition of ready? What does ready mean? Definition of ready, this is a checklist of certain conditions which must be available in each user story during the planning meeting before it's accepted into the meeting. For example, now this is just an example. We say, okay, so the user story must be defined. Defined means it's written in the form of as a I want so that. The user story has got its acceptance criteria also defined, so we know it. We cannot accept user story without its acceptance criteria. It cannot be part of the sprint backlog. The dependencies are known. We know the size in story points of the user story size and story point, and we even know the performance criteria if necessary. So if we have a checkbox, tick mark, check mark on each of these boxes, each of these conditions in this checklist, then we can say that, okay, this user story is ready and it can be part of the sprint backlog. So this is the definition of ready. And the same, there is something called definition of done. Now, definition of done, this is also a checklist, a list of conditions which the user story must fulfill at the end of the sprint once it's turned into an increment and is verified or checked, by the product owner during the review meeting in order to consider the work done or not of that particular user story. For example, we say, okay, the unit acceptance testing of the user story is done. The quality assurance test of the user story is done. We have completed all the necessary documentation related to the user story. All the bugs related to the user story are fixed. And also, we have fulfilled the acceptance criteria. Now, if we have a tick mark on each one of these conditions, then at the end of the sprint, in the review meeting, then we can consider that user story as done. Okay, so this definition of done is checked by the product owner against each user story at the end of the sprint to check whether it's done or not. So this is DOR, definition of ready, and this is DOD, definition of done. Let's have a couple of questions. So I was silent for a few seconds to help you digest, to help you absorb all this information. That's why I was silent for a few seconds. And I would probably do the same later on also to help you again
digest and absorb all of this.
A Scrum team has just completed a user story, but the product owner refuses to accept it, stating that additional testing is required. The team argues that the story meets the acceptance criteria. What should the team do to prevent this issue in the future? Ensure the definition of done includes all necessary testing and quality requirements. Allow the product owner to add extra requirements after development is complete. Require the Scrum Master to review all work before it is delivered to the product owner, or assign an additional quality assurance team to validate the work before delivery. Now, here, the product owner refuses to accept a user story, saying that more testing is required, but the team doesn't agree with that. Now, what should the team do to prevent this issue in the future? Actually, the right question should be, what should the project manager do? What should the project manager do to prevent this issue in the future? That's the right question, actually. Now, requiring the Scrum Master to review all the work before it's delivered to the PO? No, no, the Scrum Master doesn't review the work. Assigning additional team members, the quality like assurance, I don't think so, because the work should be carried out by our team actually. And allowing the product owner to add extra requirements after work is complete, definitely not. The right thing should be done to prevent this issue in the future is to make sure that the definition of done has been defined clearly, and it includes all the necessary tests and quality requirements. Okay, so the problem here is definition of done was not properly defined. That's the problem. Okay, one more question. A project manager is managing a project using an iterative approach. During the iteration planning, one of the team members insists that a user story should not be brought into this upcoming sprint since many use cases are still missing. Now, what is the most likely reason for the team member to push out this user story? The user story doesn't meet the definition of done. The user story doesn't meet the definition of ready. The user story involves an impossible stakeholder demand, or the user story might result in wasted time and effort. Now, if a team member is insisting on a user story not to be brought into the sprint because many use cases are still missing, like many details are missing, that means this user story is not ready. Okay, it does not mean the definition of ready. It's not because it does not mean the definition of done. No, it's not because it's impossible to do. No, and it's not because it will result in wasted time and effort. Absolutely not. Because if user story doesn't bring any value, it will not be part of a sprint at all, or even not part of the scope for the moment. Okay, so that's the reason. Okay, now once the planning meeting is over and the team starts developing the work, starts working on the user stories, executing the work, they will have a daily meeting. This daily meeting is called daily stand-up meeting or daily scrum meeting. It's absolutely its duration, sorry, is 15 minutes maximum. Absolutely 15 minutes maximum. Okay. And in this meeting, the presence of the development team and of the facilitator are mandatory. The product owner might join, is optional. Sometimes some stakeholders might join in certain cases, but for now, is the development team and the facilitator. And each one in this development team will answer three questions. Which work have I done yesterday? Which work will I be doing today? And are there any impediments that are blocking me from doing the work? So each one of the team will be answering these questions. And while the team member is answering these questions, there will be no discussion. No one is discussing nothing with that team member. No one is proposing how to solve the impediments. We should not have an open discussion because otherwise we would exceed these 15 minutes. And while each one of the team is sharing the update, they're actually, updating the Scrum board, or we can call it also the Kanban board. Now, the Scrum board contains here the user stories, which are part of the sprint. Here in gray, these small we call the post-it notes. The small gray boxes. These actually are post-it notes because usually the Scrum board actually is hang on the wall, and each gray box is actually a post-it note on which is written the task related to that user story, and all of these tasks at the beginning of the sprint they are in the to-do, and then once tasks are
pooled or picked by the team members. Each team member will write his or her name, on the task, and then put it in progress. Once they finish it, put it in testing. Testing team will test it. If it's fine, they put it done. If not, they put it back in progress. So while each team member is answering the three questions in less than 1 minute. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? Going to do today? And are there any impediments? So they're actually updating the Scrum board with the tasks they have pulled to work on or with the tasks they have completed, etc. And in case they have any impediment, actually, they will just mention their impediment. No one will be discussing the impediment with them, not even the facilitator. The facilitator, like the Scrum Master or the project manager, will be writing the impediment in the impediment log. Okay, so here the impediment title, the description, like, access revoked, it's a login issue, access is revoked. This was reported on 30th of March 2024 by Adam. And then after the meeting, once the meeting is over and the facilitator has got all the impediments for the team members, then the Scrum Master will address or will approach each team member to work with them on resolving the impediment, or maybe guide them to the person who'd help them with resolving the impediment, or maybe try to work on a solution. But during that 15-minute daily meeting, no, we don't discuss anything. Only issues and impediments are brought up by the people, and the Scrum Master will be noting those issues, so he or she will work on resolving them later on, because he or she is a facilitator, and his or her job is to one of his or her main tasks is to resolve impediments. Okay, so this is what happens during the daily Scrum stand-up meeting. Okay, these are the three questions to be answered by everyone in the team, the development team, and they update the Scrum board, the impediment log, and also, we will see it later. Let's have a question. A Scrum Master is facilitating a daily stand-up meeting for the team. What is the primary purpose of this meeting? To provide a detailed status report to the project manager, to discuss project risks and escalate issues to senior management, to help the team synchronize work, identify impediments, and plan for the delay, or to review and approve changes to the sprint backlog. Now, first of all, the term project manager here, maybe it refers to the Scrum Master. Generally, maybe it's just a project manager who is different than the Scrum Master. Anyway, the primary purpose of this meeting is not to provide a detailed status report to the project manager, is not to escalate issues to senior management, and it's definitely not to review or approve changes in the sprint backlog, because actually there are no changes in the sprint backlog. The primary purpose of this meeting is to help the team synchronize work, identify impediments, and plan for the day. Plan for the day. That's the main purpose of this daily stand-up meeting. One more question. A local company is developing a new product, and for the first time using a remote team for the programming tasks of the features. The design for the product comes from local team. During the third sprint review, the product owner has concerns about the project's outcomes. The remote development team is complaining that they do not clearly understand the requirements conveyed in the daily stand-up meetings. How should the project manager address this situation? Evaluate and reassign the development tasks to a local vendor who has worked on previous projects. Document the risk in the risk management plan and use contingency reserves to hire a local vendor. Review lessons learned from previous projects and organizational process sets, or determine the communication needs, environment, and tools to get the message across. The problem here is there is a remote team who are complaining that they don't understand the requirements conveyed in the daily stand-up meeting. So there is a communication problem. Okay. Now, reassigning the work to a local vendor, that's like dismissing the team, and that's not accepted in the PMI's mindset. Documenting this as a risk in the risk management and use and hire an external or a local vendor. No, we don't do that. First of all, documenting this as a risk is very negative. It's not related to the issue. And we don't go, we don't hire anyone else. Review the lessons learned from previous projects and OPAs. That doesn't really address the problem of the communication here. Actually, what needs to be done is let's determine the communication needs and environment and how to get this message across, which tools to use. That's how to solve this problem with communication, because the team here, the remote team here, they don't understand what's being communicated and discussed at the daily meeting. It's a communication issue. So we need to set up the proper environment and tools to get the message across. Now, still, or right after the daily stand-up meeting, or actually maybe during the daily stand-up meeting, when the project manager or the scrum master observes the work which was completed, the work which was finished by the team, the project manager can actually update what we call the burn down chart. Now, the burn down chart, this is updated each sprint. It's used for measuring performance. And the burn down chart here, each day, the project manager will calculate how many story points did the team complete and would compare this to the plan. So, for example, for this sprint, we have calculated 886 story points to be finished in the sprint. So, ideally, if we break the number of story points, which are 886, and we break this by 18, we find 49. So, theoretically, the team in this project every day should finish 49 story points. So, but of course, the team sometimes might finish less story points, sometimes might finish more story points. If the team is finishing less story points, like 40 story points instead of 49, that means this line, this black line of the execution, will be above the plan because, for example, here, after 3 days of work, we're supposed to have, for example, 750 remaining story points to be burned. But actually, we performed less than expected, and we have 780 story points remaining to be done. So the line of the execution is above the line of the plan. The line of the plan is this discontinued line, which means if the line of the execution is above the line of the plan, that means the team is performing poorly. The team is behind plan. So whenever the line of the execution is above the line, the discontinued line, the dashed line, that means we're behind plan. But if the team's performance improved, so the team actually started burning more story points than planned, like 55 per day, 75, 60. Then the line of the execution will go below the line of the plan. So, for example, after 12 days, we're supposed to have, according to the plan, 220 story points remaining. But actually, the team performed better, and there are only down here 180 story points remaining. So the line is below the line of the execution of the work performed is below the line of the plan, below the line of the plan. So that means the team is performing well. Now, the most important thing for the project manager to pay attention to is all the story points in this committed in the sprint must be completed. So the project manager will do his or her best to help the team really complete all the committed story points. Okay, so at the end of the sprint, the line of the execution and the line of the plan, they must collide. They must touch it, like be on the same point, on zero. That's ideally. Okay. But in case there is some work left not done, like the time is over, since the sprint is timely boxed, we cannot exceed the duration of the sprint, we cannot prolong the sprint, even if the work is not completed, then, whatever work was done, that's called velocity. Now, in this example here in sprint one, the team has committed 6 user stories. One user story with an estimate of 2 story points, one user story with an estimate of 5 story points, one user story with an estimate of 8 story points, another user story with the same estimate of 8 story points, one user story with an estimate of 13 story points, and one user story with an estimate of 5 story points. Now, this is what was planned in the planning meeting of the sprint. During the execution, the team managed to finish 4 user stories, these ones. So, and then 2, at the end of the sprint, 2 were not completed, whether they were not touched at all, or maybe partial work was done for them, but not all the work. Well, as long as it is not all the work completed, 100% of each user story is not considered as complete. So these user stories are considered as rolled over. They will be decided. It will be decided by the product owner what to do with them. Like take them, as priority one in the next sprint, or maybe lower their priority and put them in, for next sprints, etc. But these 4 user stories completed here with a total story points of 28, that's the team's velocity. So velocity actually is the actual performance of the team.
Okay? Let's have a few questions to better understand this. After checking the burn down chart in the Agile project management tool, the project manager finds out that there is a lot of work left to be done that will be difficult to complete by the end of the sprint. What should the project manager do next? Request an urgent meeting with the team and inform them that they will need to work overtime to meet the sprint deadline and keep the client satisfied. Send an email to the team informing them of the situation and encouraging them to do more effort. Wait for the next stand up meeting to find out the reason behind the team's slow pace, or wait until the next retrospective meeting to reflect on what is happening. Now, here it seems like this team will not complete the assigned work in this current sprint. What should the project manager do next? Now, many people would choose answer A, like request an urgent meeting with the team and ask them to work overtime because we really need to keep the client satisfied. While this might seem like a good approach, and that's actually what most companies do, that's against PMI's mindset. Totally against PMI's mindset. First of all, in Agile, we don't have something called urgent meeting. We don't actually have meetings among the team members, okay, other than those ones specified in the framework, in the Scrum framework. We have only 4 meetings: planning, review, retrospective, and daily. There is no such a thing as urgent meeting. That's one thing. Second thing, we don't ask people to work overtime. We're not in slavery period. So that answer A is out for those 2 reasons. In Agile, we don't send emails. So in Agile, between the facilitator and the team, or between the product owner and the team, or among the team members themselves, we don't send emails. We encourage and we favor face-to-face communication. So sending emails, that's wrong. Now, waiting until the next retrospective meeting to reflect on what is happening, that's too late because the retrospective meeting, that's already at the end of the sprint. So it's too late. Actually, the best course of action for the project manager to do is wait until the next stand-up meeting, which is probably in a couple of hours, maybe the next day, and find out the reason behind the team's slow pace, because then each team member will talk about their impediments, and you can know by then like what's causing the team's slow pace. Okay? Another question. A Scrum team is in the middle of a sprint and notices that the burn down chart is flattening out, indicating that work is not being completed as expected. The Scrum Master analyzes the situation and finds that several tasks remain open longer than anticipated. What should the Scrum Master do first to address the issue? What to do first? Extend the sprint duration out. I will not continue reading this. This is wrong. We never extend the sprint duration out. By not completing reading this answer, that will save me a few seconds, which I will need for other questions. You can do that in the exam, yes. Encourage the team to work overtime. Absolutely, I will not continue reading this. This is wrong. Facilitate a discussion with the team to identify and remove blockers, or escalate the issue to senior management and request additional resources. No, we don't escalate and we don't ask for additional resources. So since A is out, B is out, D is out, so the only one remaining is C. Even if some of you would say, what does escalation facilitate the discussion with the team? Isn't that an additional meeting? Well, you know what? Let's call the discussion maybe not a meeting, because anyway, team members can discuss among each other. But since A, B, and D are totally out, then we remain with C. We will see in chapter 12 how to deal with such questions where without even all the answers, and we will even tell you. But this is the best one, at least we have among the other ones. Now, we talked about capacity, we talked about velocity. So actually capacity, this is what the team measures at the beginning of the sprint in the planning meeting, their capacity in terms of story points or hours they can dedicate to the sprint. And velocity, this is actually the number of story points the team can complete in a single sprint. So this is what velocity is, and this is what capacity is, okay? Let's have a couple of questions. A Scrum team has completed 4 sprints, and their recorded velocities are Sprint 1, 30 story points, Sprint 2, 25 story points, Sprint 3, 35 story points, Sprint 4, 40 story points. the product owner wants to forecast how many story points the team can likely complete in the next sprint. Now, what is the expected velocity for the next sprint based on the team's past performance? So actually what you do is we sum up all of these performances, like 30 plus 25 plus 35 plus 40, total is 130, and we divide them by 4. So actually, the right answer is 32.5 story points. So actually, the velocity expected for the next sprint is the average of these 4 velocities, of these 4 sprints, and the right answer is 32.5. So we sum up 30 plus 25 plus 35 plus 40, and we divide them by 4. Okay. Another question. During the first sprint, an agile team completed 4 tasks with the story points 3, 5, 8, and 2, respectively. They also finished half of a 13 story points worth task. What is the velocity of the agile team? 18, 24.5, 31, or 13? Now we have 4 tasks. Each one of them is worth 3. One is worth 3 story points, one is worth 5 story points, one is worth 8 story points, and one is worth 2 story points. And there is a 5th task, which they finished half of it. It's worth 13. This 5th task worth 13 story points, we don't take it into consideration in the team's velocity because it is not 100% complete. It's 50% complete. So we don't, consider it as part of the velocity of the team. So actually, we will consider only these 4 completed tasks. So their total 3 plus 5 plus 8 plus 2, that's 18. So the team's velocity for this sprint is 18 story points. Okay, so this 5th task here, which is 50% done, we don't take it into consideration. Okay, another question. An agile project manager is leading a cultural project. After reviewing and tracking the team's velocity, the agile project manager decides to set a goal for the team to reach a higher velocity than the industry's average, that the team's velocity should increase by 10% each iteration, that tracking the team's velocity is unnecessary since they're self-managed, or that the team's velocity should be more consistent. Actually, I'll give you straightforward the answer. In Agile, the team's velocity should be more consistent. It should not increase by 10% or be higher than the industry's average. And we definitely should track team's velocity, even if they're self-managed. But the facilitator should try to help the team maintain their velocity across the project, from one sprint to another. That's what needs to be done. Okay. All right. Now, while the team is developing the user stories and performing their daily meeting, their daily stand-up, what is the product owner doing? Actually, in the meantime, the product owner is refining the product backlog. Like if there are any epics, the product owner is refining them and creating user stories out of them. The product owner is grooming the product backlog, like preparing the product backlog for the next sprint, like checking the order of priority, if there are new requirements, if some of the requirements are not needed anymore, okay, etc. So the product owner is actually working with the stakeholders, with the customer, on preparing, let's say, the list of requirements for the next sprint, and this is called refining or grooming. Now, some companies do have something which we call a backlog refinement meeting, where the product owner and the team they attend this meeting. However, we really don't encourage having such a meeting. Actually, we do have a better practice. Now, the team should concentrate and focus on doing the work of the sprint. Okay, the product owner will refine, check, the requirements and prepare the list of requirements for the next sprint. And maybe the most senior person, in the team could help the product owner in case the product owner needs any technical assistance. This way, the team will focus on doing the work. The technical person here, the most senior technical person, already probably, only half of their capacity was taken into consideration for the sprint, and the other half of their capacity will be dedicated to helping the product owner. That's the best way to go. But again, both practices are possible, but the second one is the most preferred one. Okay, so the team can focus on doing their work.
Let's have a question. A project manager works for a mobile app development company. One of his latest projects involves the creation of an exercise app that syncs with another nutrition app to combine and analyze the data. As a result of a recent regulatory change, the product owner is working on refining the backlog. The process of backlog refinement involves the identification of the work items to be accomplished during the next sprint, a board to keep track of the product and sprint backlogs, a prioritized list of product requirements, which is maintained by the project team, or the gradual development of product specifications to meet the needs of the customer. So the question here is asking, what does product backlog refinement means? So it's definitely not the identification of the work items to be accomplished during the next sprint. That's not backlog refinement is about. It's not the board to keep track of product backlogs and sprint backlogs. And this is not the prioritized list of product requirements, which is maintained by the team. It's actually product refinement or backlog refinement is the gradual development of product specifications to meet the need of the customer. After discussion with the development team, the Scrum Master decided to label backlog items as short term, mid term, and long term. Soon after, the Scrum Master got an email from the product owner asking them to remove those labels without giving any clear explanation. What should the Scrum Master do next? Ask for explanation, call for a meeting to address this issue, wait until the next sprint planning meeting to update the labels as per the product owner's request, or remove the labels. Now, let me tell you something. The items and the product backlog, they are the property of the product owner. The Scrum Master is not supposed to touch them. So labeling them as short term, mid term, long term, that's something to be done by the PO, not by the Scrum Master. So the PO is right, when he or she asked the Scrum Master to remove those labels and didn't have to give any explanation. So what the Scrum Master should do is definitely remove the labels, not ask for explanation, not call for a meeting to address the issue, and not wait until the next planning meeting to talk about it or to update the labels as per the product owner's request. Now, the product backlog, that's the property of the product owner. Only the product owner is supposed or is allowed to make changes or updates to the product backlog. Okay? All right. Now, same as we saw the burn down chart, the product owner also has got his or her own tool called the burn up chart. This is maintained by the product owner. This is updated every release or in every project. Now, the burn up chart, let's say it's a release burn up chart. So it takes into consideration how many sprints are part of that release, and how many user stories reflected in story points will be completed from one sprint to another in order to have a full release ready. So here, for example, in the red line, okay, we have the plan, which is, we have 120 story points, logged for this release, and we have 7 sprints in this release. And then in green, we will check how many story points the team is completing. That's why it's called burn up. So we are completing. Is completing from one sprint to another. So we can see actually we can see the green line is below the red line. So in the burn up chart, if the line of the line of the execution is below the line of the plan, that means we're behind schedule. So we can see in sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, the team has completed less than planned, which means they're behind schedule. That's in the burn up chart. Starting sprint 4, the team started performing better. So the line of the done is above the line of the plan. So here the team is performing actually more than planned. When the product owner saw that in sprint 4, at the end of the sprint 4, the product owner decided to increase or to add more work to the scope and the release. Okay, because he thought or she thought the team is performing more than planned. But then starting sprint 5 and 6, the team's performance decreased. And the product owner realized that actually those 20 story points, which he added or she added to the scope of the release, actually would not be completed. So at the end of sprint six, the product owner removed those additional 20 story points and went back to the original scope of 120 story points, and the team then finished only 120 story points. So they finished exactly as planned. So this is the burn up chart. And again, as a summary, if the line of the execution of the done is below the line of the plan, we're behind schedule. And if the line of the done is above the line of the plan, we're ahead of schedule. That's the opposite of the burn down chart. Let's have a question. So a few seconds to help you digest, a few seconds of silence to help you absorb. A project manager is reviewing a burn up chart to track the progress of an agile project. The chart shows two lines, one representing work completed and another representing the total scope. Over the past two sprints, the completed work line is increasing steadily, but the total scope line has also increased significantly. What does this indicate? The team is not completing work as expected and needs to increase velocity. The scope, the project scope is increasing, which could lead to scope creep. The team is behind schedule and needs to work overtime to meet deadlines. This is totally out. Huh? Answer C is out. The burn-up chart is not an effective tool for tracking project progress. This is also out because burn-up chart is an effective tool. So what's the situation here? The line of the work, the line of the completed work is increasing increasing steadily, slowly. But the total scope line has increased significantly, which means the project scope is increasing, and this is leading to scope creep. This is an uncontrolled expansion of the scope, which is not fitting with the velocity of the team, and this is bad. So the product owner should probably not expand the scope more than the team's velocity. So this situation here does not depict or does not mean that the team is not completing work as expected and needs to increase velocity. Actually, it's not the problem of velocity of the team, it's the problem of the scope expansion. Now, of course, in Agile, we're not against welcoming changes, but of course, for the release, the scope of the release should fit with the team's velocity so the team can meet the expectations. Now, at the end of the sprint, once all the work is completed, hopefully, the team will then conduct on time, because we cannot prolong the sprint's duration, will conduct a sprint review meeting. This is called a demo meeting, where the team they will demonstrate their completed work to the product owner, and the product owner will compare the work demonstrated against the definition of done, and we'll check which user stories are really done according to the definition of done. Okay, the product owner will then update the product backlog. Will mark the items done and the items not done. We'll also update the burn up chart, and also the product owner, of course, in the review meeting, in the sprint review meeting, it can be attended by the product owner, the scrum master, the team, they are a must, and other stakeholders like the customer, like business owners, users, etc. And during that sprint review meeting, the team will demonstrate how each item will work. They show it, how it functions actually. So the items done will be marked done. Burn up chart is updated by the product owner. These two, and also the product owner can give some heads up to the team on, the next sprint when it will start, usually in the next business day, and what kind of work will be required from them. And if there are any items which are not completed, they don't meet the definition of done, or they're not completed, then the product owner, can, probably express concerns to the Scrum Master. Maybe the Scrum Master will, definitely will discuss that as a lesson learned during the retrospective meeting later on. And the product owner will decide regarding those uncompleted or non-completed items, what to do with them,
whether they will be priority for the next sprint or what exactly to do with them. Okay. All right. So this is what needs to be done in the review meeting, in the sprint review meeting. Let's have a few questions. During the sprint review, the product owner informs the Scrum Master that the meeting is being recorded in order to send it to a key stakeholder. A day later, the stakeholder contacted the product owner to express their disappointment with the product, claiming that it is nothing like what they had in mind. What should the Scrum Master do next? Facilitate a meeting between the product owner and the concerned stakeholder, meet the stakeholder to review the product backlog items, ask the development team to have more frequent backlog refinement sessions with the product owner, or ask the development team to collaborate with the key stakeholder. Now, this is a very important question, and this situation repeats in different manners in the PMP exam. Now, a stakeholder says that the work completed is not as what they have expected. Now, since in one of the answers, the product owner is mentioned, so the right answer is the Scrum Master or the project manager should make sure the product owner and the concerned stakeholder meet and discuss the gap between what was delivered versus what was expected. Since the product owner is in one of the options, in one of the is mentioned in one of the options, then the Scrum Master will not be the stakeholder, and also because the product owner is the one responsible for maintaining the relationship and managing expectations from the stakeholders. The Scrum Master will not ask the team to have more backlog refinement sessions with the PO, because actually the problem is the gap between what was developed and what was expected, or what was delivered and what was expected. And asking the team to meet with the stakeholder, definitely not. If we did not have answer A, if answer A was not one of the options, if it was, for example, something else, then definitely the right course of action for the Scrum Master is to meet with the stakeholder to review the requirements versus what was delivered. Okay? So please make sure you pay attention to how to answer such situations in the PMP exam. You always have to pay attention to your options. Okay, if the PO is there, if is not there, if it's a project manager is mentioned or not, because in the PMP exam and the agile questions, the term project manager refers most of the time to the role of the Scrum Master. However, the term project manager sometimes could refer to the tasks of the product owner, sometimes, depending on the situation. Keep in mind that in the agile context and the PMP exam, more than 85% of the times, the term project manager refers to the role and the tasks of the Scrum Master, and nearly 15% or less to the role or tasks of the product owner. Please write this down. It can help you. Okay. Once the review meeting is over, then the team, the team, like the Scrum Master and the Scrum team, they will conduct a retrospective meeting. The product owner is not or does not have to attend, can attend, but not necessarily, and better not to attend. Okay. In this meeting, the team, they will discuss what went well in the sprint, what could be improved, how to improve it. So they need to create an improvement plan. Since Agile is coming from Lean, and Lean is about continuous improvement, each one will have a self-analysis on how they perform their work, their tasks. The team will check their collaboration method, how they can be better self-organized, self-managed. They will try to improve certain aspects, resolve their problems. The facilitator will try to resolve any conflicts, make sure that they understand the mistakes which they happened, and they put a plan on how not to have those mistakes again, and even how to improve the way they do the work, like improve the Scrum framework. This is what happens in the sprint retrospective. Okay. And if there is any important improvement actions which the team needs to carry out in the next sprint, they could ask the PO to add those actions to the product backlog. So, or they can add them to the sprint backlog and make sure the product owner is aware of them, because those actions will consume time and effort. Okay. Please write that down. Now,
Here's a summary of the sprint review and the sprint retrospective. So both happen on the last day of the sprint. In the sprint review, all the core roles participate, PO, SM, and development team, and stakeholders are optional. But in the retrospective, the PO is optional, Scrum Master, development team, they attend. And here are the goals of the review, which is, to update the product backlog and review the completed increments or delivered increments. And for the sprint retrospective is, to identify what went right, what can be improved, improve the culture, and re-energize the team by the facilitator. Let's have a question. During a software development project, the team is struggling with communication and collaboration. They often misunderstand requirements, leading to rework. What should the project manager do? Support the team in a retrospective to analyze and address the communication challenges, remove the most frustrated resources, from the team. Actually, this is wrong. B is wrong. We don't remove people. No. Perform a quality review during daily meetings to ensure understanding, or discuss the issue with the product owner to resolve concerns. Here we have a team struggling with communication and they often misunderstand each other, and this leads to rework. Removing the frustrating or frustrated resource, absolutely not. Discuss with the PO how to resolve the concerns, absolutely not. And perform quality review during daily meetings? No. During daily meetings, each team member will answer 3 questions. That's it. The right answer is to support the team in the retrospective meeting to analyze and address the communication challenges. So analyze the root cause, the reasons, and then set up a plan and implement that plan. This is the right answer. This is what is done in the retrospective meeting. A graphic designer for a dairy brand informs the project manager that she wasn't able to finish one of her assigned tasks due to an issue with her laptop. In order to prevent such a situation from occurring in the future, the project manager should what? Discuss the issue during the demonstration session, address the issue during the following iteration planning meeting, handle the issue during the next daily stand-up meeting, or discuss the issue during the retrospective meeting. Now, here we have an issue, and the key word is we don't want the issue to happen again. So we don't discuss that during the review meeting. No, that's for the demonstration. We don't discuss that during the planning meeting. That's for planning. And definitely we don't discuss that during the daily stand-up meeting. Actually, that's discussed during the retrospective meeting. We discuss that issue during the retrospective meeting, take action in order to prevent it from happening, from occurring in the future. So the right answer is answer D, absolutely. Okay? All right. So we have just reached the end of our session, exactly on time, perfectly on time. It was a very fruitful session. Actually, we wanted to remind you again of the good news you have, guys, which we told you we will share with you the news in a message in your WhatsApp groups tomorrow, so you can benefit. You can benefit from a 35% discount on those valued certifications and vouchers. And by the way, our internal students, PMP students, all of the students who took or who bought from us the Scrum Master voucher told us that actually the Scrum Master voucher helped them a lot while preparing for the PMP exam. Because actually the Scrum Master voucher, the Product Owner voucher, the Agile Master voucher, they're taken in the same way as the PMP exam. Screen sharing, webcam on, microphone on, showing your passport, situational questions, same mindset of PMI, situational questions, very important, same mindset of PMI in the PMP exam, in the Scrum exam, whether it's Product Owner or Scrum Master or Agile Master. So it's really, really helpful. And this discount is valid until 18th of February. So if you're really interested in this certification quickly, and also if you want to have full access to the recordings and access to the different, this study material, the presentation, the exams, the success guide, this new thing, get it, get this, for as little as the 159 euros or 499 dinars, and you can pay through different means. So thank you so much, everyone. Definitely we will be sharing with you
uh, the summary of this session, and see you on Friday at 7 p.m. on the sixth session to finish this chapter and also to start a new chapter, which is the predictive project management and hybrid project management. Thank you, everyone, and see you on Friday.